Hello, my name is Maggie Cross, and I am a doctoral candidate at Baylor University. I am excited to welcome you to my doctoral dissertation defense titled Get Involved, a single case study examining how co-curricular involvement establishes a sense of community for Generation Z students at a liberal arts college. This presentation will review several key aspects of my dissertation. First, I will explain the problem statement that spurred me to conduct this study, along with the landscape of existing literature on the topic. Second, I will detail the purpose of this study, the research question, and the theoretical framework that guided my process. I will then detail the methodology that I used to conduct data for this qualitative study. Finally, I will explain my findings, the implications and recommendations based on those findings, and my plan to distribute the information. The problem that led me to conduct this study is the high attrition rate among first-year students at college. According to the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center, only 61.1% of students stay at the school where they started their first year of college. This level of attrition has serious implications for the students themselves, for colleges, and for society as a whole. I've spent my career working in student activities offices at small liberal arts colleges. I know anecdotally that co-curricular involvement can have an impact on retention, but I lacked the academic evidence to support it. In my literature review, I gathered existing research on student involvement, the retention crisis in higher education, and the characteristics of Generation Z. Scholars categorize student involvement into three major categories: student organizations such as clubs, student government, that type of thing, fraternities and sororities, and collegiate athletics. Each of these organizational categories have a wide breadth of recorded benefits. The most notable benefit is the positive impact that student engagement can have on retention. However, much of the literature on engagement and retention focuses on curricular, academic focused activities rather than student involvement through clubs and organizations. The literature also details a worrying present and future for retention in higher education. The current low retention rates are created through a variety of factors and are compounded by the enrollment cliff. There are about 15% fewer traditionally college-age students at present due to the effects of the economic recession of 2008. The same number of schools are therefore fighting for the same share of a smaller pool of students. For small liberal arts colleges that rely heavily on each student's tuition in order to calculate their budgets, high attrition and a smaller applicant pool can be financially devastating. Gen Z is the generation of traditionally college-age students currently attending college. They thrive in environments where they can fulfill their purpose and engage in activities that closely align with their goals. They also trend toward higher levels of stress, anxiety, depression, and loneliness than their generational predecessors, often stemming from challenges building interpersonal relationships. This combination of qualities sets up Gen Z to struggle with building relationships through co-curricular involvement in college. The culmination of these factors paint a worrying picture of retention and community building through co-curricular involvement. My study sought to better understand how first-year students create a sense of community through co-curricular involvement. The purpose of this single case study was to examine how Gen Z students at a small liberal arts college establish a sense of community through co-curricular involvement. The research question that guided my study was, what are first year Gen Z students' perceptions of how co-curricular activities create a sense of community? The methodology of my study was constructed using McMillan and Chavez's sense of community theoretical framework. The sense of community framework is divided into four categories: membership, influence, integration and fulfillment of needs, and shared emotional connection. Membership speaks to the idea that there is a boundary between members of the community and individuals who are not members of the community. This concept also encompasses the idea of a sense of belonging. Influence explains the concept that a community exerts influence over its members and that the community's members exert influence over the community reciprocally. Integration and fulfillment of needs indicates that the community members experience positive benefits as a result of their membership in a given community. Shared emotional connection speaks to the fact that a community is strengthened when its members share common experiences. I selected this framework because it offers a comprehensive understanding of what factors construct community and because it was broader than the frameworks that only related specifically to belonging or co-curricular involvement. The sense of community framework informed the the research site and the methodology that I selected for this study. I conducted this study at Siena University, formerly Siena College. Siena is a small Catholic liberal arts school in upstate New York. The school is home to about 3,300 students and over 90 student organizations. I selected a single case study design in order to really dig deeply into the experiences of first year students at Siena. I selected 4 participants using criterion sampling. In order to participate, students needed to be in their first year of college, to have completed at least one full semester of school, and to be a member of at least one student organization. After selecting the participants, conducted semi-structured interviews with each student and a focus group with all 4 participants. Once I collected the data, I then coded it using descriptive and then axial coding. This coding process led to 6 key themes from this study. The first 4 themes, pictured here in red, orange, yellow, and green, aligned with the 4 categories of Macmillan and Chavis's sense of community theory. The remaining 2 themes, in blue and purple, emerged from the data. The first finding is that participants in this study describe student involvement as creating connections within their college, which sometimes strengthen their desire to return to school. Participants felt that involvement helped strengthen their feeling of membership within Siena's community. The second finding, student participants feel that their student involvement opportunities influence their individual growth, indicates that participants felt the influence of their community on their personal development through their co-curricular involvement. The third finding, students see involvement as a method of meeting new people who share their values and goals, spoke to the fact that co-curricular involvement could help those participants build connections that would help them live out their values and support their future aspirations and goals. The fourth finding is that student participants in this study found co-curricular activities to be joyful experiences. While the idea of joy or fun can seem a little bit shallow at times, it's really valuable that the shared emotional connection the participants had to their involvement opportunities was joy. The fifth finding is that the study participants shared their social interaction offered by co-curricular involvement led to further involvement in social opportunities. Each participant had an anecdote of some kind about how one initial friendship led them to join a club where they met a second person who invited them to events and so on and so forth. Each social interaction for them begot more social interaction. The sixth finding is that scheduling conflicts and competing priorities posed a barrier to co-curricular involvement for study participants. This was the main barrier for participants' ability to construct a sense of community through co-curricular involvement. It was particularly salient for commuter students who often could not attend student activities due to the event or meeting times. Each of these findings relates to the context of existing literature. The first finding speaks to participants' social connections strengthening their desire to return to Siena. This supports existing literature, which states that student engagement amplifies retention. The second finding talks about participants experiencing individual growth through student involvement. This also supports existing literature, which shows that co-curricular involvement supports students' personal development across a wide variety of parameters. The third finding shows that participants were able to meet peers with shared values and goals through co-curricular involvement. This adds to additional detail to existing literature, which has focused more on the ways that student involvement can enhance students' professional network. This finding is distinct in that it shows that there is an inherent value in developing friendships with peers who share values and goals. The fourth finding demonstrated the participants found their co-curricular involvement to be joyful. This is supported by an existing study by Carruthers et al., who found that students who participated in collegiate athletics established a strong sense of fun through those activities. This finding enhances the literature by expanding the finding from just athletics to a wider variety of student involvement. The fifth finding, the concept of social momentum, is not well documented in the existing literature. The closest concept I could find was a 2018 study by Mamas, who found that new friendships formed when groups of students worked in small groups together during an academic study. However, this finding is distinct from that because it speaks to specifically co-curricular involvement and talks about meeting one person in one context and moving it to a second context. And so this is a finding that does expand the literature significantly. The sixth and final finding, which speaks to participants' scheduling barriers, is supported in the literature, particularly for commuter students. However, this finding is distinct from existing literature because it's specifically related to participants' co-curricular activities rather than their academic commitments. These findings have implications for two main groups: first-year students and student activities professionals. First-year students are the group with the most to gain through co-curricular involvement. New students must prioritize co-curricular involvement opportunities in order to reap the benefits these opportunities provide. Student activities professionals are the individuals who create and design much of the student involvement opportunities that exist at colleges. It's critical for activities professionals to be able to clearly communicate the benefits and outcomes of co-curricular involvement so that purpose-driven Gen Z students are able to see the connection between their co-curricular involvement opportunities and their personal goals. By clearly communicating these benefits to other campus offices, student activities professionals won't be alone in their efforts to recruit students to get involved on campus. Additionally, student activities professionals can diversify the timing and variety of co-curricular activities such that more students are able to participate. However, many activities offices would require additional support in order to offer such a wide variety of activities. I plan to distribute these findings to first-year students through an orientation session that focuses on the immediate and long-term benefits of co-curricular involvement. By focusing on the outcomes, Gen Z students may be better incentivized to get involved. I plan to present these findings at two professional conferences over the next year: the ASECU conference in June of 2026 and the NACA conference in November of 2026. Each of these conferences have audiences that would benefit from the study's findings and that would be able to create change on their respective campuses. Thank you for listening to my dissertation defense. I appreciate your time.